BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hi everyone, it's the boys' favourite dragon, Deborah Meaden here, although I'm pretty sure they say that to all the dragons. To be honest, I wish I'd never given my number to Chris Stark. The constant pitching of business ideas can be really quite tiring, especially at 4 a.m. when he's clearly had a few. I should also point out that I'm not going to rap here. I've been asked to remind you that this podcast contains strong language and adult themes, and if that's not for you, feel free to declare yourself out. And I'll be back later on with a question for Crouchy.
Don't know if I'm supposed to say that.
We've just broken down the technicalities of picking balls out of a bowl.
I'll give you the option now, Crouchy, that you could live to 100. Would you go for it?
Make my way downtown, just doors and homebound.
Vanessa Carlton!
Bex has sent you a message. Ed Sheeran's written you a song, but Mr. Islam said happy birthday. That's the real win.
Vanuatu, 166th in the world.
God, who do I go with this?
You're going to have to say something quickly.
Hello and welcome to That Peter Crouch podcast with me, Peter Crouch, Chris Stark and Tom Fordyce are here. You right, boys?
It's just occurred to me, we've recently celebrated our first year anniversary since we were at Kensington Palace.
Do you know what I've noticed here, Chris? Tom's going for a whiskey, and I've not seen this whiskey since the Palace episode.
Yeah.
You haven't got the red chinos on as well, have you?
I've not worn those since, because that was the last time we actually went out, really, wasn't it?
That is mad, isn't it, when you think about it? Like, I had a bit of your whiskey as well, straight from your glass. I remember that. Different world, wasn't it?
It's crazy to think that, you know, we've been doing this for almost a year, really, haven't we? Like, we got back in the pub, didn't we, briefly? You were having your baby, Chris. How is Bango, by the way?
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, no, he's just doing his thing. Yeah, little Troy Bango Ian Stark there. He's
doing well. Getting on all right. Yeah, but like we've been doing this sort of like the working from home pods, and it is a shame, isn't it, that we've not been able to get back in the pub, but we will be soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, before too long. I'm just thinking of that jacket and in fact the whole outfit I wore, I really regret. Why didn't either of you sort of say something or like
your outfit, which later on social media took quite a lot of heat.
Did. Yeah.
Well, he looked like a young Liam Gallagher, didn't he?
Yeah. At the Palace.
You had the parka, but you looked like you'd borrowed someone else's shoes, didn't you?
I'm telling a lie to you. I don't regret it because it was just what I was wearing. I actually thought it looked smarter than it was on camera.
Chris, what on earth is going on with your headphones?
Look at this. One side of them just hanging down. Radio 1 DJ.
Literally, your job is to listen and speak, and you've got one ear hanging off.
It's like they're flopping down like the ear of a spaniel.
But why has no one approached us about this? Like, I'm not even just talking about companies that might want their headphones featured, but like, why did the BBC not step in with this podcast and say, like, has anyone had a word with the boys about the equipment that they're using? Like, at no point has anyone from the BBC come and said to us, like, Pete's wearing, God knows how you describe them.
Wembley.
One of Stark's ears is hanging off.
Yours is, even as you speak to us, Chris, one of the ears on the earphone is just rotating slowly like a satellite dish.
Mate, it's amazing that. Are you only hearing us? I take it you're only hearing us through one ear at the moment.
Yeah. But the BBC is so thorough in so many other areas, isn't it? Like I always think with like Planet Earth and stuff like that, when you watch that, for me, the most interesting bit is, you know, the last 10, 15 minutes they show how it was made. And it's epic in its own right. These people, like, they go and live with the whales for like, you know, 3 years or something. And, you know, they sort of, they know them personally. And then they gain their trust and, you know, the footage comes from that.
I agree, Chris. Those are amazing, those last 10, 15 minutes. Imagine how shit the similar thing on us when we're recording the podcast would be.
Oh, well, let's do it. Brilliant. Let's give Paddy, is the sound guy here, the only sound guy in the world who, I will never forget this. We were sat in the pub and I looked across the room and he had his headphones on and he was eating popcorn so loudly.
We was thinking, what is that noise? We were all looking at each other. What is that?
Oh, it's the sound guy.
That repetitive, heavy noise.
Don't worry. It must be fine because the sound guy's not reacting.
The sound guy is just eating very noisily during the recording of this podcast.
That doesn't happen at Attenborough.
Anyway, boys, loads of pod business we've got going on at the moment.
Chris, I was just going to ask you about the billboard. I mean,
Yep.
I've done my best work, and I don't want that to sort of be lost. Like when's it going up?
Yep, I've got news on this. So I've spoken to the billboard company, and they've told me, these were the words they use. They've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, I can see what they're saying.
But the good news is it should be up on Bond Street or in Bond Street by the time the next podcast is out. And if you're,
Brilliant.
I guess, legally allowed to be at the billboard, I look forward to seeing the results of that on social media.
Whereabouts is it? Do you know?
Yeah, Bond Street.
Yeah, but do you know where?
Bond Street's quite long, isn't it?
Well, fucking, how narrow do you want it to be? Like, just.
Well, listen, mate. I didn't want to get too deep into this, but in a national lockdown in the shopping district, it's possibly the worst advertising. You might as well have just flown it over Siberia on a plane.
Buried it in a coal mine.
I think it's a bit harsh, boys. I think it's Bond Street. It's prestigious. I'm just excited for people to see it because we've seen it now, and
yes,
I would argue it's both equally the best and shittest billboard of all time.
I found myself wondering the bloke who goes up the ladder with the rolls, when he starts pasting those on, what's he thinking?
It's shambolic, isn't it, really? But it is funny.
But you've got to think most people that encounter that look at that and go, that's an advert for a BBC show. They're going to take it at face value.
Well, it's talking about things that are getting out of hand. Is there a greater example ever in history of something getting out of hand than what happened in the House of Commons recently?
Oh, wow.
The podcast and Crouchfest 2 and our slogan were all mentioned with by an MP. So the podcast is literally going to go down in history.
It was incredible. Absolutely incredible. He's passing the pod in the House of Commons. It's never been known.
I always feel they talk in a certain way in the House of Commons. There's a sort of protocol or an etiquette to how they talk. So it's just weird hearing the podcast talked of in such a formal way. We do ask people to pass the pod however they can, and we didn't ask for that. That's what's amazing about it. None of us have asked for it.
Boys, it was a lovely surprise hearing Deborah Meaden at the start of the show.
With the Dragons, we never said, she was always our favourite. There was never even a discussion. Me, Chris, certainly you as well, Tom. We said, she's definitely our favourite, and we would have liked her, to be our partner in whatever business we're doing. But yeah, great to hear her. I'm fast becoming a huge lover of these language warnings. They become more and more random.
I think it's useful to have a dragon in the back pocket, isn't it?
So have you been bending her ear about investments?
Oh,
Chris?
mate, all the time. I get drunk and send her text messages. I did one once. I was really convinced in, and I called it Annie Maps. It was an app which told you how far away you were from your nearest shark or gorilla or like various different animals.
What's the Annie section?
Well, instead of it was a play on Annie Mac, wasn't it? So it's just animal.
Is she involved at all?
No, she was never involved. It was. It was. Yeah. Listen, I appreciate it was a flawed idea, but my point is that there's a fair few people who listen to this podcast who might have a good idea, and rather than just having it in the back of your brain or dumping it on your phone, you can let us know, and we've now got a dragon sort of involved. Deborah's lovely, and with the right idea, we could all stand to benefit from it. Financially, none of us are doing great out of this podcast. Be real.
I'm looking forward to this one, Crouchy. All about rivalry. So we're not just talking about derbies, are we? Local derbies here. So you're going to tell us about what rivalries in squads between managers, even playing for England? Fair amount to go out here.
Oh, there's loads to go at. Like you say, there's obviously derbies I've played in, big games, local rivalries, but there's also rivalries within your squad, within your team. If you're one of four strikers, you're all vying for one place up front or two places up front. Like when I was playing for England, so many different forwards are in form and you've got to keep them at bay or, try and get back in there. And so, yeah, there are plenty of rivalries that way. Some rivalries you just cannot get past. I mean, I'm talking about playing with some top players, some players where you go, I'm just not going to get in here. some rivalries where you have to take a decision where you might have to move on.
Crouchy, I know you always stay across your emails.
I've been inundated with emails from analysts who would love to analyse Chris's performance in his five-a-side. I can't wait to see that stat sheet and see where he can improve.
I just want to see what, when you see a heat map, I've never seen 5 pancakes on a heat map.
I'd be well up for, a stat person coming along. Also, I found that stats episode so interesting, right? Because off the back of it, I wasn't aware there was so many people that were so passionate about stats in football.
When they say, 9 times out of 10 he scores that, it's like a throwaway comment. Expected goals has been in our game for a long time anyway.
And different guys.
And what they're doing is just putting it in a different way and making it more thorough, I suppose.
Now, I'm not just saying this because I'm waiting for one of you boys to arrange someone to turn up at my 5-a-side and have an angry stat man. You want the pancakes, don't you? And they're coming as soon as we can get back out there.
Yeah, but what if you think it's 5, but he records 6 or 7 pancakes?
Multiple pancakes.
Well, yeah. Well, this is all to be discussed. I am up for it. I God knows what the other guys that I play with are going to make of it. We don't really discuss all this.
When you're there with the GPS and the heart rate monitor and a fella on the sideline with a laptop, they'll be thinking, who is this fella?
Cameras set up on poles all the way around.
Is that what it is? Is that what will happen, you reckon? I'll be wearing the kit.
Like you'd have to wear, if it's going to get done properly, you'll have a heart rate monitor. You'll have one of those bras on. But yeah, you'd have to wear that, and that monitors sort of every movement you make, and then he'd be noting down all your pass completions, your long range passing, your short passing, everything.
All right, cool.
So we want to say thanks to all the people who've got in touch with us about this. Thanks to Sean, who's got experience with Exeter City's Academy, to Sam, who's 20 and studying sports coaching and management at Bath, Will, who works for an actual proper football team and is in his final year at Coventry Uni, plus Matthew, whose company provides graphics, analysis and stats for live matches on telly. And there's also someone calling themselves Huff, who wants to analyse your 5 pancakes, Chris.
Incredible. Can't wait. Do you think when I do a pancake, I'm going to have to shout it as well? Just
right.
They'll know a pancake when they see it. These boys will know a pancake.
But do you know what's going to kill you now? Like if anyone does this to the podcast and sees you and you go for one, you're just going to get 4 or 5 pancake.
Right. Should we get into this podcast? I'm excited about this one. Let's do the rivalries.
Pancake.
Come on. Knuckle down.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
As we mentioned earlier, Crouchy, rivalries are absolutely everywhere in football, aren't they?
Yeah, but you know what? Like rivalries in so many different forms. People in your position, stuff like that. Like that kind of rivalry. And then there's also a rivalry, like now, for instance, like this rivalry of Man City and Liverpool, which was, has appeared. It's just two of the best teams that we've seen going head to head. But going back sort of a few years, there was a mad rivalry with Liverpool-Chelsea. Certainly started with when I was there with Rafa and Mourinho. And the ghost goal, it started with Luis Garcia in 2005. And then there was more when we had the 2007, which I played in when Daniel Agger scored. And it went to penalties and Dirk Kuyt scored the winning penalty that got us into the Champions League final. And then we also beat them in the semi-final en route 2006 to the FA Cup. And let's be honest, Chelsea were a better side than us at the time. In that era of Robben and Duff and Drogba, Lampard, John Terry at his best. Then they were a proper team. Mourinho flying in every sense of the word, and then coming to sort of Anfield and us beating him in these one-off games. And it was amazing when we beat them in 2007. In these sort of one-off games, we had that sort of edge, and it was brilliant to see. Sort of, you realise that you're in a European Cup final, and you've beaten Chelsea, one of the best teams we've seen. And that rivalry was just so intense for almost a month beforehand. You knew that semi-final was coming up, and all the history of the Luis Garcia goal. And listen, footballers say, it's just another game. We've got to win it to progress. It's not. It's a load of old bollocks. That a derby and rivalries like that, you feel more nervous. You feel more adrenaline. You feel the crowd are more up for it. The manager is talking louder. He's talking faster. Everything about that game is different. And as much as you try and say It's not 100% is, and you can feel it. And
Mate, it's a lot on the manager as well. If you think about it, like I don't know if you can equate it to a number of games, but I think for a manager there is a pressure that when a manager falls out of favour and then you lose the derby, like it just feels like it free falls quite quickly, you know?
But then on the flip side of that is you could be having a nightmare, win the derby, and it paper over a lot of cracks.
What's it like in the city in the build up to that game, in the few days before that game?
Just you felt the buzz. You know, when we were on the bus, we used to get the bus from Melwood to Anfield. You know, you can hear the sort of banging on the bus from people down below. And as soon as we get close to Anfield, you can hear the roar and the buzz. And with the European history of Liverpool, everyone expects, and it doesn't matter about league form. Chelsea were better than us in the league. But this was a one-off game, and yeah, we were 1-0 down. But you just feel like you're gonna do it at Anfield. It's just like that's the feeling I had at that time, and obviously it's been proved since as well. And I was so excited to just play in that game. Thankfully I was starting. We got off to a great start, quick free kick, and Daniel Agger slotted one in. And I've never celebrated someone else scoring so much than when Daniel Agger scored, because defensively, we were so good with Hoopier and Carragher, Finnan, Risa, Pepe Reina. We were in good form, like defensively. I didn't think, although they had so much threat, I just felt at Anfield we wouldn't concede. Got the goal, and then what a feeling when it went to pens.
Do you have individual words with each other? Is there a different intensity to how you are talking to each other? Is it less jovial? Is it less routine?
The way I coped with it was I was just trying to relax as much as possible, take it as a normal game when you knew deep down it wasn't. The gravity of the situation, it felt like everyone in the world was watching it. It's the semi-final of the Champions League. Second leg, we had AC Milan to play in the final. And I remember after when we won it, Jude Law and Daniel Craig were out in the Sir Thomas Hotel having a beer. That's how
crazy nights. What about before the game? Did you have like a classic sort of rock star huddle beforehand? Like before a band goes out, was there a classic Stevie G, like pointing at each one of you?
There's no dressing it up. It's a bigger game than a normal game, and also, how many opportunities do you have? That's why I was so pissed off in the final, really, that I didn't start the final, because how many opportunities do you have to play in a Champions League final? And that was the way I was looking at it with the semi. Just leave everything out there. It was you don't have any regrets, because you might not come back.
We're talking about rivalry, right? Looking at rivalries in the sense of your position and your place in the team. I know it's not an easy thing to talk about, but do you know what I mean?
It's the easiest thing in the world to talk about. I'll tell you.
Oh, fine.
I'll tell you straight now that 100% there's rivalry in football with regards to your own team. Like, what player wants to sit there and watch someone else play in his position? Am I happy that Dirk Kuyt's playing ahead of me? No, fuming. I was gutted. For the good or great of the team, you have to put that to bed. I'm not going to slag him off or say that but I'm not going to say anything on that particular day, because the ultimate thing is we want to win this game. But yeah, I'm going to have a word potentially after the game and say, why didn't I start, or have a quiet word with the manager. But with regards to throughout my career, I always looked at the other strikers that were at the club, and I always knew that I had to be better than them to stay ahead of them and stay in the team. If I think about England, Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen were in my generation. They are going to play ahead of me, and that was something that I knew. I'm a realist. I didn't think that I was a better player than those two, but what I did think was, certainly with Wayne Rooney and Michael Owen, they had injury problems. If I was the next best one, if I put myself ahead of Jermaine Defoe, ahead of Darren Bent, ahead of Dean Ashton, Darius Vassell, if I any of these boys that came in, if I was the best of the next one, I'd play. And I think I got 40 to 42 caps, and I wouldn't have got them if those two were fit. Let's be honest. I can't sit here and say I would have played for England that many times, because I just wouldn't have done, because they they were better.
Is it harder, do you think, when your rival is closer to your skill set? So if someone is after your position and they're a totally different sort of player, then it's slightly easier to take, I guess.
Jermaine Defoe wasn't like, we could play together. Michael Owen, Wayne Rooney were different types. But then when sort of Carlton Cole came into the phone, or Dean Ashton came in, Andy Carroll, those sorts of players in the England side, they were players that I thought, hold on a minute, this is what I do. So that having the similar sort of skill set was more of a problem. Heskey as well. There's another one. Emil Heskey got called back for the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. He came back into the fold. Like I had all my caps, and then got back in the England side ahead of me. But yeah, I mean, he was like a similar sort of skill set, I suppose. And that was the person that I had to get in front of then.
It's like if you're dumped, Chris, isn't it? And the person who's dumped you, if they go for a totally different sort of person, it's a little bit easier. If you sort of look at their new partner, you think, yeah, they're a bit like me, but slightly taller, slightly better looking. They just dress a bit better.
Harsh and Crouchy, all this.
It's a better me.
If it's someone totally different, you go, right, well, I get that. But then when you look at someone exactly the same, and you go, like, why is he better than me? How is he better than me?
Yeah. Why do you need that?
Can you be friends with the rival? So I'm thinking here about David De Gea and Dean Henderson. They've both been quite public about the fact they want to be number one. Yet they've got to train together all the time. So is that not every time it's the equivalent of turning up for work and the person sitting next to you wants your job?
I never really had an issue with another striker unless he had an issue with me. Inside, and maybe to my family, certainly my dad, we'd chat and stuff, and I'd be like, he'd be like, you need to get ahead of him, you need to do this, And then there's this other one where, say you've been replaced and someone comes in, or you're sitting on the bench and there's a striker playing ahead of you. With all the will in the world, you want the team to win, but you don't want him to score. If there's people out there, strikers out there or centre forwards out there that say, no, I want him to do well, I want him to score, they're lying to you. And people will say, yeah, but you might say that's selfish, but I don't think there's any other way you can be if you want to be a professional footballer at a high level. It's dog eat dog, unfortunately. And listen, that goes on in every position. If you're a right back and there's another right back, you don't want the right back to play well, unfortunately. You want the team to win, but you don't want him to play well because you want to play. I remember a couple of occasions, I'd have to say, there was a healthy rivalry at Tottenham. Myself, Robbie Keane, Jermaine Defoe, Roman Pavlyuchenko, and then Rafa van der Vaart came in, and it became clear sort of Rafa was going to play. But a lot of the time I played with Rafa, and it was brilliant. We really hit it off as a partnership. We played Inter Milan at home and Inter Milan away, AC Milan. We played big games, and I played in all of those games with Van der Vaart. And I remember looking at the bench and thinking about obviously Defoe and Pavlyuchenko and how fuming they were.
Yeah.
And listen, they were fuming. Defoe not so much, to be fair. Like I got on well with him, but Pavlyuchenko, I felt had a genuine dislike for me.
Really? He got the hump?
When you just know that someone's going away and going in Russian, how the fuck this lanky freak playing ahead of me?
So when you scored in the San Siro, Pavlyuchenko's thinking, you spawny bastard.
I have no doubt in my mind that he's probably thought that, yeah. If he'd scored it, I'd have gone, you bastard, that should have been me.
One little word of warning here, Crouchy. So Pavlyuchenko, in his retirement, he's become a politician.
Oh, fuck. He's not mates with Putin, is he? Can we edit this?
He represents Vladimir Putin's United Russia Party.
He should have played ahead of me. I always said that. If I was manager, I would have played him.
Yeah.
I said to Harry a couple of times, should start Pav today.
Crouch going for the spectacular. Oh, what a goal from Peter Crouch!
That Peter Crouch Podcast from BBC 5 Live.
So you're looking at that Spurs situation, right? And they're all watching you from the bench. And it's like they're at the back of the... You know when you see these old-fashioned discos and no one would dance with them? And they want to dance.
I remember missing a chance. And everyone does this, right? You miss a chance, right? You look over at them and like Pav gets sent out to warm up. And you think, oh, fuck, you bollocks, I haven't got long left here. So you just try, you got to try so hard to just try and make an impact because you know he's coming on because you've missed a chance or you've done something wrong and a couple of the it's like they're like smiling as they do a groin stretch and you think, I'm getting replaced in a minute.
So do you ramp? Do you go another level then? Because that's fascinating. What a power move by a manager it would be that they can just send a player out to warm up, knowing that it will just give you the kick up the arse that you need, without them necessarily needing to give you that kick up the arse. Do you know what I mean?
I was thinking as well. It's like when you sign for a new club. Like I've signed for a new club loads of times. There's 3 or 4 strikers already there who don't like you. You walk in and you're like, oh, you're right. You say hello to everyone, and then you see the strikers, and you're like, well, who's one of them's on their way out, or one of them's on the bench. It is awkward.
Did you find it helped you having that kind of rivalry, or did it hinder you?
No, I think it's really, really helpful. I think there were times in games where, certainly in that time at Tottenham, with those players, these are top players, by the way. And I thought first half, if I don't score or play well, if it's goalless at half time, you're going to get dragged off on 60 odd minutes, you're off. So it would make me play better. And also the time from the bench, if you were replaced with any of those players, when I came on, I'll be trying so hard to make an impact or score a goal to get me in the team the next week. And I think it's a healthy competition.
Has there been an instance where it's almost been unsurmountable rivalry?
Well, listen, Fernando Torres springs to mind. I remember, I was flying at Liverpool and enjoying myself, and then this, younger Spanish model appears on the scene. He was quicker, stronger, better looking. And
that counted a lot for the manager, did it?
Yeah, well, I thought it was one of those where I thought, we could play together. And we never did. And then him and Stevie hit it off, and it felt like he was Stevie.
Shit.
Yeah, they hit it off great. And
Crouchy, talk us through Torres arriving at the training ground for the first time. Was it all slow mo?
Well, he came in and he knew Xabi Alonso. He was in with Reina and Luis Garcia and all the boys. Rafa was speaking to him in a different language. Oh. Then it really sort of hit home, and I realised I was from Ealing. And
Rafa kissed him twice, both cheeks.
A double kiss.
You knew you were in trouble. Then.
I thought he's never kissed me the double kiss. I never got 2 kisses. It was a blow because I thought me and him could play together great, but it worked better with Fernando and Stevie just in behind. So, yeah, disappointing really. But, I mean, listen, he was electric. And one of those where I was watching him every week just banging in goal after goal after goal. And I was thinking, I'm going to have to move on, aren't I? And it was I'm at one of the best clubs in the world. And I was happy being sort of like a backup to Fernando Torres because, I still felt like I was going to get games and score goals, but it wasn't even a rivalry. It was like he came in and was just brilliant. And I thought, right, as long as I get a few games and stay in the England squad, I'm happy. But I ended up with just not really that many games at all. And then I had to move to Portsmouth. That was my my only option, really, which is a shame because then Fernando Torres left and went to Chelsea. And I was watching David and Gog and
Andre Voronin
playing up front. Maybe if I'd have stayed round, I'd have played. But yeah, one of those things.
Imagine that, Chris, where you're at a club and you love living in the city, and the fans like you, and you've had a great season scoring goals as you've got to the Champions League final, and then just this newer, younger, faster model comes along. It seems a bit cruel.
What can you do? And he's looking at you as he walks in. He's looking at you. He's got you in his sights. He's walking in all smooth and just smelling great.
Did he blow you a kiss?
You're there in your shorts, just watching him. His leather jacket.
His skin's so shiny.
He broke Stevie quickly, you're saying, though.
Fernando Torres at that time, you forget really, like, it was so good. I mean, there's still an argument for him to, between him and Suarez for how well he did. In that first season, he was electric.
I'm going to throw one more in the mix for you there, because I think I can't make my mind up on this one. So you've got Torres, who you've seen firsthand, and you've got Suarez has come in, and then a few years down the line, you get Mohamed Salah comes in. So I want you to do a cheeky little podium for those three.
I don't want to do that.
I know. That's why I've asked you the question.
I'm going to go Mo Salah, Suarez, Torres, which is bizarre considering what I've said about Torres. I feel like Salah, I mean, his numbers are better than both of them. 5th or 6th all-time Liverpool top goal scorer.
Is he?
It's incredible. Wow. I think Suarez was that close to winning the league. And I think Torres was electric in that first season, without doubt. But what Suarez did was unbelievable. So I think I am going to go with Salah, Suarez, Torres.
Do you feel you've got a good eye for rivalries now, Crouchy? Do you spot things that perhaps we don't see?
I think so. Listen, let me throw the ball back into your court, right? Imagine you're sitting there at Radio 1 and Scott Mills goes, right, I just want to try out Tom Fordyce for a couple of days a week. And Fordyce comes in, with all his dulcet tones and his, the lady, hard-hitting facts,
I know, mate.
Knowledge. Would you be comfortable with that?
No, but it's like everyone's job. It's like, look, Tom's there, he's writing away. Suddenly, they've only gone and signed a wordsmith.
Yeah.
Susie Dent's turned up.
Susie Dent's and Fordyce has looked over.
If Dent turns up, I'm stepping aside. That's a Torres-style scenario.
That's a Torres moment.
Yeah. But then I see Dent walk into the training ground and I just think, my goose is cooked.
Yeah, you're done. What about you, Chris? Where's your Torres moment? If someone walks through the door and you just think, do you know what? I'll go to Radio 4.
That'd be amazing. What a transfer that would be.
I think every workplace, like you see someone new come in, do you know what I mean? There'll be a lot of people out there who'll be thinking who their Torres is right now.
Or, who's your rival? Call them out.
Just say the name to yourself.
I don't think you can tell them because, if I went to Pavlyuchenko, like, I'm playing ahead of you, like, no.
Exactly.
Which you wouldn't do because of his Putin connection. But
yeah, obviously not. I mean, he should have always played ahead of me. I always said that
Superior
to Harry on numerous occasions. He was a better player. But I think there's people out there now, if they're listening, if they're on their way to work or they're about to get on a Zoom call with someone, they know. And I think just go, right, my Torres person is.
Yeah, should we count down?
Yeah, let's count them in.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah, and you've said it now. Hope you feel better.
Off your chest.
Dave in accounts.
It's old Barry from Wigan just rearing his head again. Dave from accounts is taking your job one day. But you know what? If you are going into work right now, be strong. We've got you. You're with us.
It's healthy. Remember that. Wanting them to fail a little bit, it's a human feeling, isn't it?
No, you're right. It's actually a nice thing to embrace it. When you actually say a name like that, just to yourself just then, it can eat you up inside. And jealousy is that, isn't it? It's sort of like, I don't want to say it's jealousy, but there is an element of it. No,
it's not jealousy. Do you know what it is? It's about wanting to succeed at what you do, being passionate about what you do. If you let someone come in and take your job and you're passionate about your job and you like doing it, you want the company or you want the team to succeed, but you want that person to fail a little bit.
Yeah.
You want the accounts department to have a cracking year, but if Dave messes up a few Excel spreadsheets, then so be it.
It'll be one of those at the Christmas party when you're allowed to do this, you can, meet everyone and go, actually, you know what? You're all right. Maybe. Do you know what I mean? And then go back to your rivalry again when it's, back in normal times. I think what you're saying there is such a powerful thing because we all feel this.
Everyone's got a Fernando Torres. that should be on the start, I reckon. Everyone's got a Fernando Torres.
Crouchy's done the robot again because it's 100 Premier League goals for Peter Crouch.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Okay, so we've heard about your rivalries with players, but some of the real fierce ones in football are those local derbies, aren't they? Like, we've seen experienced players like Steven Gerrard lose their heads. But get this, Crouch, I've done a bit of digging here. So you played in 17 Premier League derbies. You only got 3 yellow cards.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in it all. I mean, listen, I remember playing in that Villa Birmingham game that hadn't been a derby for a long time, and even the nicest of people, like we know Dion, friend of the pod, that game that we played, I watched him headbutt Robbie Savage, and just really out of character for Dion. Regretted it after, but these things happen. You get caught up in these derbies, and that was honestly a really, really intense atmosphere, that game, because it hadn't been played for a long time, because Birmingham were in the Championship for a while, and when they got up, it was a huge game, and they did well in both games. I think they beat us both times.
Stairs leading up to the hospital, right? That sort of scenario. Before the game, what is the most intense dressing room you've been in?
I remember my first Merseyside derby, it was Goodison, and Stevie saying to me, like, you score today, it'll always be remembered. The same at Man United, the Man United game. If you score in this game, people remember from the city. And do you know what I saw? I saw nerves before those games like I've never seen it before, because it meant so much, certainly to Carrick Jamie as well, because he's around a lot of Evertonians, I think. And
didn't he grow up an Everton fan?
Yeah, he did. And I think it was it was such an intense atmosphere. I mean, a couple of weeks before the derby, he's already talking about it. We've got the derby coming up. He's making sure people are fit. He's going, are you going to be all right for the derby? Are you all right for it? Just going around everyone, because I imagine he gets a hell of a lot of grief from people if he loses or makes a mistake, or it's a lot more intense for the local boys than it would be. But having said that, being a player in every derby that I've played in, you recognise the difference between a derby and a normal game.
Have you been in a position where you've bollocked another player for not putting in the shift?
One of the biggest mistakes that I've seen in a derby was Melberg throws the ball back. I was involved in this game, and Peter Enkelman sort of like goes to control it, and it goes in. One of the most horrendous moments. I felt so sorry for him. I mean, we came in half time. I think it might have been half time or full time, and there was a barrage of abuse from loads of players going, "What on earth are you doing? This and that." And he just apologised, and there's not a lot you can do in that situation. But in a derby game to do that, I've never seen so many wanker signs in my life. The one that I never played in, which I would have liked to have played in a few, like you talk about El Clasico, amazing game.
Yeah,
Old Firm would have been. I mean, that's one. It's not even just one to play, and I think I've not been to an Old Firm match. I've got friends on both camps. So that's one that I have to go and see.
Boys, we've had a message from Mark. Mark says, I think we should all campaign for managers to start taking penalties. Imagine if someone fighting for his job tucked away a penalty in a crucial game. It could be handicaps such as older managers taking theirs from 10 yards, but regardless, I'd love to know your thoughts on the idea.
Oh, I absolutely love this.
Game changer.
Absolutely love it. Imagine gaffers stepping up. So we go straight to sudden death, like 2 gaffers stand up at the end of matches. We could trial it in the Carabao.
Do they have to stay in whatever clothing they're wearing?
100%. They've got to do it in loafers.
What? No, they're not playing goalie as well. It's not goalie and striker situation.
I'll get that. Yeah, that's nice.
I'm not proposing that the managers should be goalkeepers as well, if that overcomplicates it. But it seems tricky to bring in another player into that scenario. For me, it feels a bit like, look, we haven't done our job right. This game hasn't been sorted. So we will now take responsibility for what happens next.
Do you know who this would suit then? This is obviously going to suit Nuno Espirito Santo because he was a goalkeeper.
Go on, throw them at me and I'll say goal or not.
Graham Potter.
Miss.
Yeah, I agree.
Sam Allardyce.
I think he goes power.
Yeah.
Goal.
I think he goes power off the post, then off the goalie because the goalie's poor. I think it's like a messy penalty situation, and he walks away laughing, rubbing his hands.
Yeah, with his top off. Hasselhootel.
Over.
I love it's not just a miss. Hasselhoot is over.
Over, yeah. I think Pep slots is nicely calm.
Brendan Rodgers, I'm slightly more worried about. He's not an old man, but he would fancy himself for a good penalty, Brendan, wouldn't he?
I don't know why I fancy Brendan to slot it. I think he'd send the keeper. I think he'd be in their head.
Yeah. Bielsa, he's getting closer to the goal.
Yeah, he's closer. Yes, this is good because it's handicapped.
But I just think he's going to side foot it.
Being Bielsa, he will have watched 4,000 hours of footage on this goalkeeper.
That's true.
And he will know exactly where that goalkeeper likes to dive. So I think Bielsa would actually slot on that basis.
But Mourinho might struggle.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He was in goal when my mate Greg Jules slotted one past him in the game for Grenfell.
How did he look then?
Yeah, he wasn't moving great.
We should mention Jurgen Klopp. Used to be a striker.
No, I think goal. I think he scores.
Solskjaer is just with his striking record.
He'd be fine. He'd be fine.
Yeah.
Just in the corner, it'd be easy.
I would worry about a Dean Smith.
Arteta's slotted one, isn't he?
Arteta's slotting, I think. Ancelotti would he side foot it into the corner?
Who else we got?
Tuchel missed. Moyes scores. Ancelotti scores.
Yeah, but who's winning in a Guardiola, Solskjaer, derby, rivalry, penalty shootout? Who's winning?
I mean, that's the top game for me. I don't think you can look past Solskjaer. I think Guardiola's cool, calm, collected, but if the keeper guesses right, he will save it because it's slotted.
Yeah.
Whereas Solskjaer is banging them in corners. He was cool,
calm and collected. That's.
Or maybe he was just cool. I don't know if Crouchy feels he wasn't.
No. I was happy with just cool. I mean, I know. I could put calm and collected with it, but I chose not to. I really like the idea.
Boys, little update on where we're at with getting hold of Ronaldo, Kim Jong-un and Elton John. You know, our challenge to see who can... well, it's a bit of a race, isn't it? We got a message from Mikey who says, I was doing some filming in Moscow at the 2018 World Cup at a plush hotel, and one day the legendary R9 Ronaldo walked out of the lift. The next person to walk out of the lift was Mick Jagger, who went and said hello to Ronaldo like they were old friends. As we were packing up, Ronaldo popped out onto the balcony for a cigarette, so I moved over to the door. He said yes to a picture, was really friendly and spoke pretty good English.
Yeah, that's disappointing because, like I said, I think he pretended he didn't speak very good English when I met him once before. So, yeah, it doesn't bode well. Maybe he just thinks I'm a prick.
Maybe he sees you as a rival, Yeah,
we talk about rivals all day. Maybe, he saw me as a potential threat to his godlike status on the beach. I might have been his Torres.
That's exactly it, isn't it?
Right, so now I know he speaks good English. I'd like to think I've got a chance now getting a swear warning. I'll have an update for you on the next episode.
Hi everyone, it's Deborah Meaden back again. And I've got a question for Crouchy. Can you settle this debate? Because this is the one we always have in the den with the other dragons. So, who's better, Ronaldo or Messi?
You know what? Rather than us discussing that question, I would love to hear the dragons discussing that. Who's better? Seriously.
Where do you think the vote would be?
Peter Jones going Ronaldo all day.
Ballantyne, where's his vote going?
Ballantyne, I'm going to go. I think Ballantyne's Messi.
Perfitis?
Cool, you're going back a few series now, aren't you?
I am a little bit. Yeah, he's a football man. He's a former chairman, isn't he, at Millwall?
I think Perfitis is going Messi.
And where's Peter Crouch going? Because I'm aware that you sometimes try and swerve these questions.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and that's why I threw it back to the den. But I think Ronaldo is unbelievable and obviously an absolute machine. But I'm just talking as a purely gifted footballer, someone that is from literally a different planet. It's almost like nature versus nurture, I think, with these two. And I think obviously I played against Ronaldo under 21 level, before he went to Manchester United, and saw it firsthand on a football pitch, and straight away I was like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And I always remember this. Ronaldo controlled this 40-50 yard pass on his back.
On his back?
and then the ball came up, and then it just stuck to his toe, and I'm pretty sure it's Jalen Samuel. He just attacked him, done about 100 step overs, and burnt past him, got across it, and I remember just thinking, who the hell is this? The audacity to control the ball on his back. He was literally showboating. It was just absolutely ridiculous. But I've been fortunate enough to play against both of them. Not for very long against Messi. I think I came on for about a minute in the new camp, but I'll take
Still
it.
Counts.
Still counts. It's there in the stats.
But I just think Lionel Messi is the most naturally gifted footballer that we have ever seen. It's a discussion that will go on, and there'll be plenty in Ronaldo's camp and plenty in Messi's camp. But I have to say, I'm in the Messi camp.
If you had to play in the same team as one of them, which one's working better for you?
Thing for me, right, sort of later on in my career was the wingers on opposite sides. Oh, it's so frustrating. When I played for Tottenham, I had Aaron Lennon on the right and I had Gareth Bale on the left. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect for me. At times at Liverpool, where I had Jermaine Pennant on the right and Harry Kewell on the left, it was an absolute dream for me. When later on in my career, I had sort of Marko Arnautovic was a right foot on the left, and Shaqiri sort of a left footer on the right. And what they want to do is just come in and shoot. And for a striker, it's like the world's worst. And the amount of times you see Ronaldo cut in and shoot, I think you'd forever. I remember seeing it with Benzema. You'd sort of forever chasing the rebound rather than getting a good quality ball into the box. And, Ronaldo, 9 times out of 10, he scores, or expected goals. He scores more than he doesn't, than he misses. But I just think Messi would definitely create more chances for you, whereas Ronaldo is an absolute goal machine. So to play with someone, you'd rather play with Messi.
Well, there you go. Thanks for that question, Deborah. Good question as well. I'll tell you what I'll do as my little bit of homework, boys, as well. I will slide into the Instagram DMs of every dragon I can find, and just put Messi or Ronaldo and see what they come back with. Report back next week.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
Boys, we've got this agreement that if people want to come on and advertise their podcast or sell their podcast, the agreement is that they come on this podcast and they just do it themselves. This week is a great one. We can say hello to Paddy McGuinness. Yes, Paddy.
Paddy, you all right, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, Peter. How's your good self?
Yeah, good, mate. Good, mate. What are you up to and what are you selling?
Well,
what you selling?
I just heard the intro. I've got to be honest. Not really bothered about selling anything, and not too bothered about chatting about anything. To be honest, it's just nice to see you.
Do you remember when me, you, and Rob Beckett ended up in that bar?
Oh,
and
Jesus.
He told me he was... Rob Beckett told me that he was having a baby, and then he realised he hadn't told his mum yet.
Do you know the best thing about that night? It was a long time ago, that. And I'd known Crouchy a few different things, but I'd never been out for a drink with him. Cuts to about 3 a.m. We're in the Amyard Hotel. He says, "Who wants a whiskey?" I'm sat there thinking, I can do a bit, but this is next level now. Oh. Then he gets a lemon out from the minibar, throws it up, starts doing keepy uppies, catching it on his back, and some of his best football he played in the Amyard Hotel. It was amazing. I'm telling you. And then he gets to about 4 a.m. He said, "Right, shall we go out?" I'm like, "Pete, we are out. This is out, son. It's 4 a.m. We've been drinking all night."
Because we were having a good time, I think, where we were. We just said, "Oh, we go back to the hotel and have a few more," and then we just did have a few more, and then it turned into a lot more.
It's those wild card evenings, isn't it? That's the thing. Yeah. It's a bit like, Paddy, we did this thing on the podcast where we just put a load of random people into a WhatsApp group and just saw how they got on. I can't remember who was in there, Crouchy. Who was
Fiona Bruce was in there.
Yeah, Fiona Bruce was managing Clyro. Pat Cash was in there. Yeah, it was a great group. And they all got together. And even over this Christmas, I mean, we did that a year ago.
What I'm totally over with WhatsApp groups, and I don't know if you've had this, is this thing. You'll always get one tool who puts one of them. Have you heard these sex noise clips?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and every time I fall for it. They're doing the rounds, them things. They drive me up the wall. Have you been done by them?
Oh, God, yeah.
So many times, yeah.
I was with Flintoff, right? And we were sat there, and he said, "Here, come on." He said, "We'll send one to Phil Neville." And we sat there. We were filming Top Gear at the time. We forgot about it. He said, "I'm in the middle of a Lioness's scene talk."
No.
He said, "I've quit."
Are you enjoying it now, Paddy? Obviously, I've watched a load of the Top Gears you've been involved in, and I think when you when you take on something like that with an established lineup like that has been there in the past, it must be a bit nervous. But I feel like you boys have really took it on. It's doing great, isn't it?
Do you know what? Using a football analogy, it was kind of like when Clarkson, Hammond, and May left. It's a bit like when Fergie left Old Trafford. You don't want to go in then. But the new series, it's this mental thing where you hold onto the back of a car and they give you titanium plates to put on your feet. They drive you as quick as you can go up a tarmac runway. So it's effectively water skiing, but on tarmac.
No.
So you're stood, you've got all these sparks coming off your shoes. And as you're on the back of that car going up again, you're thinking, Clarkson's off doing an adventure and what have you. We're on the back of the car getting dragged up a bloody runway.
Nah, you've got to do your years, Paddy. You've got to get your years into that, you know.
I know, you've got to earn your stripes, haven't you? But we all absolutely love doing it.
So, Paddy, Top Gear's back on. It's back on BBC One.
Yeah, we start back Sunday nights. It was an episode where we're up in Scotland. There's another episode where we track down our dad's original cars.
Mate, there's a whole series in just that, though, isn't there? You go for the grandparents' car, then great.
Yeah,
who do you think they are? They'll be kicking themselves that they didn't go down this route.
Who do you think they are?
Nice. That's why he gets the big money.
That Peter Crouch podcast from BBC 5 Live.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts. Radio podcasts. Radio podcasts. Radio podcasts. Radio podcasts. Radio podcasts.